Welcome everyone to KSC's K Start, where we have honest, funny, and sometimes downright hilarious conversations with innovators, founders, and business leaders on their journeys from the ground up. We hope you'll find hidden knowledge and inspiration as we extract key insights and expertise through the bad, good, and ugly of the entrepreneurial journey. I'm joined today by Celina Lee. We go way back, but we won't talk about all of that for this session. We'll date ourselves, so we won't do that. But Celina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. So good to meet you, everyone.
Celina, before we get started, why don't you just give everyone a brief introduction about the work that you're doing, and maybe a short intro on how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So after graduating from college, I started my career as an investment banker, and then I went to law school and became a corporate lawyer at a big law firm in New York City. And I just felt like I didn't know what my next step was. And as a private equity lawyer, you're just reviewing contracts all day to help rich people become richer. And I was like, oh my God, like, is this what I signed up for? So after getting all the degrees and all the jobs, I kind of went through this whole journey of figuring out like what I really want to do with my life. And it was really terrifying because I felt like I did all the right things, but my life just felt so wrong. And I won the race, but I was in the wrong race. So I begin to start asking myself all the questions that I really should have asked much earlier in my life. And by just trying a lot of different things, I eventually figure out my path. And it actually started out as writing a book and getting it published because my very first childhood dream was to write one book with my name on it. And I remember at your very first KC event, I think I was the first speaker when you invited me after my book got published, which was many years ago. It was stories about people who have the courage to pursue their dreams. And then I started a community called Give One Dream to support people to take action towards their dreams. So I had different events and campaigns. And then that led to me starting a podcast called Live Your Dream, where I interview a lot of different successful people about their career journey and how they had the courage to pursue their dreams. And eventually I found my way into the world of coaching. So I now work as an executive and career coach, and I help a lot of people figure out their next step, transition into fulfilling careers, and to have the courage to take action towards their goals and dreams. So, yeah, it is my life's work.
Awesome, thank you so much for that. So let's take a little bit of a step back. So why did you become a lawyer to begin with after banking?
Yeah, so I actually thought about going to law school when I was in college. I went to MIT for undergrad, and back then, like as an MIT student, going to law school was like really not a thing. I don't really know how it is now, but MIT encourages undergrad students to pair up with a professor to do like a research project. And my professor happened to have gone to law school. And he never really practiced, but he was, he went to law school and he taught at MIT for like 40 years. He was the dean for a while, and a lot of his research always involved around the relationship between law and technology. He was like really way ahead of his time. So that was like really my first introduction to law, and he always encouraged me to go to law school. He thought I would do well, so I kind of had my like goal set. I thought I would just go to law school when I was during college. But then, life has all these serendipitous, weird opportunities.
Yeah.
And I was actually away from MIT during second semester of my college years. Second semester of my junior year during college, I was doing a study abroad at Oxford,
Mm.
and then I was supposed to travel, in Europe, and then apply to law school. That was my plan. But then my grandmother, who was, in Korea, she got very sick and she was about to pass away. I was very, very close to her. And so I just rushed back to Korea. And, she eventually passed away, and I had like the whole summer not knowing what to do. And back then, finance was really hot. Everybody wanted a job in investment banking.
Right.
So now that I am in Korea, I was like, okay, maybe I will apply for a summer job to also like
Yeah.
be around my parents because my mom was, in deep pain. So I just applied and, got a job at Merrill Lynch. And then that led to a full-time offer eventually.
Hmm.
So I thought about, okay, well, maybe I'll give this, investment banking thing a try. And then I'll eventually go to law school. So yeah, and it was easier because I went into investment banking and I had some experience in finance that it led to me working as a corporate lawyer.
Hmm. So, I don't know how it is now, but like that is kind of like the dream track for a lot of people probably listening here, right? Merrill Lynch, which doesn't exist anymore, but BAML, going into a top tier law firm, which is where we first met when you were at the law firm.
Right?
You know, there are a lot of people that will climb over themselves and do everything in their power to get to that. But you did that, and then you didn't feel like it was the right fit for you or it was the right direction for you. So then I have a very important question. What's your MBTI?
Good question. I know this is what a lot of people in Korea are actually especially talking about, right? So
Yeah.
I am ENFJ, and it's so
Okay.
interesting because when I read the description, I was like, oh my God, like did they interview me? Because
Right. Right.
it really
Yeah.
describes. So I think ENFJs are natural helpers. We believe in like the best in people. We get so much joy and happiness out of helping other people and supporting, other people to become the best version of themselves. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so when I read the description, I was like, and no matter how many times I take it, I'm always ENFJ.
Yeah. Well, I can see that kind of personality not going over so well in banking and and the law.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are right, right. And then I heard that Obama and Oprah Winfrey are ENFJ, so
Mm,
I'm in a
there you go.
nice
You're in good company. You're in good company.
company. That's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I mean, you did that. You found your way there, right? Through various serendipitous events or not so serendipitous events. And you know, there must have been a moment, right? Like for me, like I had a moment when I was in banking and then I was like, all right, I'm out of here for good. Like what was your moment like? Like was there some kind of eureka or something bad happening? Like how did you make that firm decision like I'm out of here?
Yeah, it wasn't like an overnight thing, but I think where I found myself was that for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure about my next step. So if you remember, like in high school, your next goal is to get into a good college and then
Yeah.
maybe get a job after, and then go to good grad school. For me, it was, law school and then get a good job at a big law firm. So I always had short-term goals to
Mhm.
distract me from actually thinking about what I really wanted to do with my life.
Mhm.
And when I joined a big law firm here in New York City, and externally everything looked good, felt like finally I had achieved my goal, becoming a lawyer. I finished all my schools. And I had a good job that paid a lot of money for my age at the time. And, my parents are proud of me. And our office was at the Rockefeller Center, and everything just seemed like it just seemed as if I had achieved my goal. And I did achieve my goal, which I thought was my goal. Turned out to be not true.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my God, but what's next for me? And then when I looked at what the natural step would be to, try to make partner or maybe go in house or something, and none of those options really excited me. And when I looked at the partners I worked with, so like my bosses at my law firm, even though, I respected them and some of them I am still friends with them, but I just couldn't see myself like in my 60s doing the same thing. Like if I if I die just reading contracts and all I did was help rich people become richer, because that's what I was doing as a private equity lawyer, I thought I would just be really sad about how I spent my time. And so for the first time in my life, I was like, well, I don't know what my next step is. It wasn't very clear to me. And so it was very scary because I'm a person who just like I need like the next goal. And I
Right.
just felt like I was going through a dark tunnel that I just felt like it was never going to end. And
Mhm.
honestly, I didn't have any guidance. Like I didn't know who to talk to, or
Mhm.
like there was no one I could talk to that could help me. And I guess looking back, I kind of became the person that I needed at the time, that I was desperately searching for. So I remember talking to my dad about this, and he said, I understand this is like really difficult time for you, and I will be supportive of you, but you're the only one that can get you out of this situation. So do whatever you can, do anything that you can. So I was just really desperate. So I would do everything and anything. I would like read books, anything about the topic. And there was like a book called "What Should I Do with My Life?" And as if like the book was going to tell me,
Clear
like it
book.
was not
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah, and then I would like try to meet people, outside of law, because virtually
Mm.
all my friends were lawyers, and they were very
Right.
like negative, and
Right.
everybody
Right. Right.
hated
Right.
their
Right.
jobs. So like,
Right.
it wasn't very helpful. And then I think what
Right.
happened was I just had a really bad relationship with a job. Like everybody was like, well, we're job is supposed to be miserable. This is what we signed up for. This
Right.
is our
Right.
fate. What are you going to do about it? So it wasn't, and I just felt like that wasn't helpful. So I just tried to get out of it and try to meet people outside. And I would go to different events where like more creative people hang out and things like that.
Mm.
And what I did, I think, was a pretty turning point was that I analyzed like what really went wrong. And I
Mm.
think what I noticed was that I was only doing the things that other told me to do. Like,
Hmm.
I never did anything on my own. Even if there was some things that I wanted to do, I would be like, well, is that gonna like help me get into better school or help me get a better job? Basically, I was just living to make my resume better to like impress other people.
Right.
And I would never allow myself to do the things that I want to do because I thought it was irrelevant for like my career success. And as
Right.
a result of that, I became a person who doesn't even know what she wants, even
Mm.
after working hard for many years. So I made a promise to myself that from now on, if there's anything that I want to do and that I think is interesting or I'm curious about, or that I think is meaningful, regardless of whether it has anything to do with my job, I'm going to give
Mm.
myself permission to try it.
Hmm.
And then at the time, there was a small Korean American broadcasting television here in New York City.
Hmm.
And I was invited to be a guest on some random show. I'm sure I was not doing anything interesting. I think they just didn't have anyone to interview. So they just like interviewed me. And the next day, the company called and said, hey, we're thinking of opening like creating a new show. Would you be interested in hosting it? And I had no experience in
Wow.
broadcasting or journalism, anything like that. But remember my promise to myself, like I'm
Yeah.
gonna give myself permission to
Right.
try different things.
Yeah.
And honestly, sounded really interesting. They were very small budget show, so they could barely pay for my transportation. So I think honestly they just needed someone to host something. They had
Hmm.
like didn't have much money. So, and in a way it was really great because it was such a small budget show, they let me do whatever I wanted. So I was like my own casting director. I would just like, reach out to people that I wanted to interview. I
Yeah.
was my own writer. I would write my own like script and the interview questions, and I would, like interview them, and like the whole experience of producing a talk show taught
Yeah.
me a lot about like storytelling. And
Hmm.
also, I've also learned that I'm a person who really likes people and hearing their stories and sharing them with other people. So that idea was why I wrote a book. So I wrote a book in Korean actually called 꿈을 이뤄드립니다.
Hmm.
And it's an interviews, stories of people who have the courage to pursue their dreams. And my biggest question then and also now is like, how do people figure out what they want to do with their life? And
Hmm.
because that was a question that I was trying to answer for myself. So I reached out to all these mentors who, became very successful in different industries, and I asked them that question. So,
Right.
yeah, so the talk show led to the book idea, and then, yeah, eventually it completely changed the trajectory of my life.
Right. That's such an interesting topic, right? Like permission to do something that you want to do.
Yeah,
It also implies that I do feel like most of us feel like we don't have permission,
we
right?
don't
That's the
have,
counter, right? We
we,
don't have permission to do
right.
what we want to do, and then we make I mean, I don't want to call it excuses because sometimes it is real life, but it's, I have responsibilities to my family or like, to my social group or my social standing, et cetera, et cetera. And we make up all of these, we'll call it stories, right? We make up all of these stories to try to justify something that may not be rewarding. And how do you get over that, right? Because that's another topic that I've been like fascinated about over the past couple of years, which is suffering for gain, like real gain that you want is different than just suffering for gain that I don't want, right? Like going to the gym or like
Mm,
working really hard for an end goal, like
right.
that that's okay, right? That actually is the payoff is great, and actually that's necessary for growth. Like
Sure.
nothing, good is worth having if you didn't actually suffer to get there. But um, how do you decide that, right? Like how do you decide that you do have permission? How do you get over that hurdle, right? Like of I can do this, it's okay. And your peer groups, even when you were doing it, they were like, that seems like a terrible idea,
Oh, awful idea.
right?
Why
Yeah,
would you do
awful
that?
idea.
You're
And
crazy.
mostly like a lot of parents too. For me, like my parents are like, that's basically the definition of unemployment, like like
Right.
entrepreneurship, right?
Korean
Like in
parents.
Korea anyway too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you get over that, right? How did you get over that? How did you really get to that thought process? If you could like kind of step by step walk through giving yourself permission, right? I know we got there, but
Yeah.
like, how did you say, I don't need to be a lawyer at a top firm. I don't need to work in Rockefeller. There are things that are more important to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, how did you get there?
Yeah, and it was a long process, and because I honestly didn't really know what I wanted or who I even
Mhm.
was. And I think what happens for a lot of people, especially for Korean Americans, is that we inherit the values of our parents or the society around us, and we end up confusing what we want with what we think we should want.
Yeah.
I think for me, I've learned that I'm a person that really values freedom. Like it is
Mhm.
really important for me to spend time in the way that I want. I don't like when people tell me what to do or tell me to come into this office or, for how many days a week or like you only have set amount of vacation. I'm like, what do you mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm an adult. I can do the job, but like don't tell me how to spend my time. And
Right.
I think like no like when you flip pain, it really reveals what's most important for you. So I think actually like really thinking about the moments of pain, like when it was really agonizing, like the moments that you really hated, like you don't ever want it to happen again, you can and then you can ask yourself like what did I learn about what's so important to me during those times? What was lacking, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, it was freedom and it was also meaningful work.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was like really unhappy as a lawyer, I asked myself like, what is it about this job that I don't like that much? And
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't like hard work because I'm a hardworking person and I can
Yeah.
really do long hours. I mean, did
Right.
investment
Right.
banking, right? But it wasn't so much the long hours of hard work, but it's just that I couldn't control my schedule. Like I didn't know if I could, have dinner with a friend tonight. I mean, virtually never
Yeah.
during the weekdays. I don't.
Right.
They're like,
Right.
it's
Right.
hard for me to see the sun, you know.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
like even in the weekends, I didn't know if I could. I mean, investment
Yeah.
banking was much worse than
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me as a lawyer. But yeah, and then like I didn't know if I could go on vacation and things like that. Like that, so like the lack of freedom was a big thing, and also like the work of the meaningful piece. Like if I don't mind the hard work, I don't mind the contract review, but like what am I contributing towards?
Right.
And at the end of like if I pull all-nighters to do like really good job on this, like at the end of the day, I'm making billionaires even become more of a billionaire. And that was the end result. And for me, it was not very meaningful. And that's not how I wanted to live my life, right? So when I really thought about all of that, I have come to the conclusion that the reason why I'm in this position is because I always allowed other people's ideas about what success meant dictate my own decisions. I must
Mhm.
admit, I actively participated in the process of getting
Right.
there, a
Right.
life where I was really miserable, right?
Right.
And I realized, so I follow the formula for success that society has defined for me. It did not work for me. So
Uh-huh.
now I'm going to do whatever I want. And
Right.
not do whatever I want and as in irresponsible, being irresponsible, but as in like how I spend my time, giving myself permission, right? And I also thought about how like when you want to really figure out what you want to do, you need to go out and try things, right? Like if you want to know like what kind of clothes fit you well, rather than just like thinking about it, like you want to go out and try something. It's like
Right, right,
you'll know it right away. Or if you want to get married, you should probably date some people, not
right,
just thinking about what kind of person you want, and like
right.
marry someone right away and hope for the best. It's
Hmm.
probably not going to end well, right? But unfortunately for career path, I think most people don't know what they're signing up for until they get there. I didn't know what lawyer was being all about,
Right,
corporate lawyer is all about until I became one. I'm not sure if I would
right,
have signed up for it if I had known it,
right,
right? So
right.
like when I realized like why I'm in this situation and why how I got here, I knew that I need to do something different. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, why am I in this situation? And I realized it's because I never allowed myself to do anything that I wanted to do.
Mm,
So I was just always doing the things that people told me to do, and that's why I'm in this situation. So I thought about what is something that I can do differently, and I said, just give myself permission. Like from now on, whatever it may be, I knew that I need to either like do something different or meet different people to for my life to change, to at least have a chance of some kind of a change. And so
mhm.
so that's what I did. It was really really a scary place, and I wished I had some kind of a support, whether it's a coach or community or friends. But honestly, everybody was so lost. So I
Yeah.
kind of went on my own journey. So I think it was through the moments of pain I realized that I really needed to do something different, and that was a promise I had made. And
Hmm.
actually, about that topic, I have some clients who have very impressive sounding resumes and high
Right.
power jobs, and they say, "Selena, please give me permission to quit." You have my full permission,
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
give
yeah.
yourself the permission, but if you
Right,
want me to give it to you, here's my permission for you.
right, right. A little bit of a confessional there, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
so you then, after that growth and that journey, um, you decided to become a coach,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is not similar to what you did.
Not
And
similar.
so, and I think um, that's another one of the conflicts, right? For
Yeah,
new entrepreneurs or people trying to do something different, is that oftentimes the thing that you want to do has nothing to do with what you did
sure.
before,
Mm-hmm.
for for various different reasons. How did you make that leap? How do you get your feet wet, and how do you start that process?
Yeah, and it was interesting because I actually didn't know about coaching at all. Like I didn't even know, never heard of the industry. I didn't know there were people who do this kind of thing at all. And I when I wrote the book and started a community to help people pursue their dreams, and I was very active. Like I was speaking a lot, and I was participating in a lot of different things. So I was someone recommended me to participate in some like fellowship leadership program here in New York City.
Hmm.
And through the organization, I got one of the benefit for joining the fellowship program was that we got coaching sponsored by the organization. So I
Okay.
didn't know anything about coaching until I actually got a coach myself. And then it was a very life-changing experience in that, there was this person who's a trained professional who's not a family member or friend, because like, they love us, but it's hard for them to be objective because they know us too
Right.
well and they have their own agendas, right?
Right. Right.
And but here was this person who's a trained professional who's very objective, who doesn't want anything from me other than just wanted me to be the best that I can be.
Mm,
She was asking really powerful questions to get to know myself and to be really honest about myself, about what I want, not what I think I should want, and then to really set goals that are aligned with my values and who I wanted to become, and take action to actually make it happen. And it was like really life changing. And I was secretly envious of her job. I was like, oh, I wish I could do what she does. Sounds so fun. But, I'm a lawyer. Like, how could I quit? Like I
mm,
already invested so much of my time, and my identity was a lawyer, and all my friends were lawyers. And, in Korea, like you're called by your job title, right? So
right.
like
Right.
even more scary to quit. And so
You have no
like,
title. You have no
yeah,
title
exactly.
anymore. You have
And
no
then people are like,
identity.
Coach,
Yeah.
what is that? Like, why would you do that? Why would you like throw away all of your great credentials to
Yeah.
do that? And so there was a lot of fear. It wasn't just like the fear of failure, as in like, can I actually financially make it happen? But
Right.
also like the identity transition too, right? And so even though I was very envious of her, like I was kind of hesitant. And then I have an older sister, and she's
Mm.
like, "Didn't you write a whole book about pursuing dreams? Like, why don't you follow your own advice?" I was like,
Right.
"Oh, you actually have a good point." So
Yeah.
I enrolled in the same coaching school that she and my coach got certified from. And even then, I was like telling myself, like, no, I'm not really quitting law. I'm just like,
Right.
learning
It's a
about this.
hobby. Yeah.
So yeah, like I'll do it on the side. And maybe
Yeah.
at the time I was growing my Give One Dream community. So maybe it will help me to design programs and things like that. So that's how I was telling myself. But then deep down, I knew that I wanted to leave law to pursue
Mm.
coaching. And the first day of school, I felt like I came home. It was so weird. I was in a room full of strangers because the first day of school, I just met them. And I felt like, it was like a professional feeling of coming home. I felt like I
Mhm.
was wearing really comfortable clothes that fit me really well. And I can just be me and do this really well. And then I was like, oh my God, like I never felt this way in a professional setting before as a corporate
Yeah.
lawyer, investment banker, right? And then, yeah, and I just felt like then everything kind of made sense. Like, oh my God, like everything I did in my life led me to this point. Like, and I needed to go through all the ups and downs of struggles through my career, figuring out my own path, feeling really lost and feeling really, really stuck. I needed
Mhm.
to experience that in order for me to be able to relate to people who are going through a similar journey. And so I
Right.
could be in the best position to help them. So, yeah, so it was kind of a full circle moment for me. And
Mhm.
for a while, I was like, and then of course the transition was really scary. But I
Right.
think at the end of the day, I just kind of followed my intuition. Like I had a
Right.
lot to lose because I was giving away up a lot to quit law.
Right.
But I just something inside me, I don't know if it's like an intuition or a gut feeling, and just like I just felt like, Selena, you have to do this, otherwise you're going to regret for the rest of your life. And
Wow.
also, one thing that I thought about was, I've tried a lot of different things, right? And there was sometimes like moments when I would like judge myself for not having figured out like the one thing, like, either you're a lawyer, investment banker, engineer, whatever, right?
Mm-mm-mm.
I did so many things and like sometimes my resume didn't make sense.
Mhm.
But then I was like, you know what? But I've tried a lot of things that seem unrelated to each other. But if I really think about the common things of the things that brought me true joy, there were common themes. It was whenever I did anything related to people and stories, I was very,
Right.
very happy. So I knew that. I was like, oh my God, I found it. Whatever I do
Mhm.
from now on, it has to involve people and stories. So
Yeah.
when I found coaching, I was like, this is it. Like I found it. And if I am still scared and I still, continue to practice law, I could be miserable for the rest of my life and I don't even have right to complain. So that's how I left. Yeah.
Right, right.
Mhm.
And so then you became a coach and then you're starting a business effectively,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Like you have to get clients and things like
Hmm.
that. What was that process like? Right? Like in the beginning, I think everyone has a very unique journey on starting their business.
Right.
Some of it is very similar, some of it is very different. In
Hmm.
your case, what were the hurdles of getting up and started as a new coach? How did you find new clients? Like, what did you have to do?
Yeah, and my journey into entrepreneurship is different in that I didn't set out thinking like I'm going to start a business. Let me
Mhm.
think of an idea for a business. Like that was never the plan, right? It was
Right.
just that I was just like trying to figure out my career path, and then I stumbled into this world of coaching, and I really enjoyed it, right? So that's when I decided to pursue it full time.
Right.
But of course, being a good coach doesn't mean you know how to build a business around coaching, right?
Hmm.
It's like two
Hmm.
completely very, very different skill sets.
Right.
It's actually so kind of relevant to also many of my clients now, their goals for us coaching, that I support them to build a personal brand, right? There's
Yeah.
a difference between like being good at what you do, but letting other people know about it. It's a
Yeah.
two very different skill sets,
Yeah.
and there's needs some effortful investment in terms of how you create your story and like how you present yourself, how you talk about what you do in a way that's authentic, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything like that when I was starting, right? So I was like, oh, I think I like coaching. I think I can be really good at it. So in the beginning, like I didn't know what I was doing. And then I remember being really like scared, like what if I fail? What if I can't make this happen? And then one day I realized, you know what? Like I need to tell people that I'm a coach, right?
Yeah.
And if I go to all the like receptions or networking events and I introduce myself as a lawyer, how would anybody possibly give me a chance to coach them or
Right.
even benefit from my coaching, right? So the day that I decided I'm gonna go, go full time and leave law completely, I said from now on I'm going to introduce myself as a coach whenever I meet someone new, and I'm sure they don't even care, right? But like in New York City, there's like all
Yeah.
these like events and whatever, and like people like all talk about where they went to school and what kind of job
Right.
they have, and mostly like in finance and law, right? And then for me to like think about, oh my God, if I call myself a coach, like what would they think? Would they still
Right.
want to talk to me? And there was a lot of fear, right? But I was like, you know what? But I have to I have to believe that I'm a coach before other people will see me as one. So I like wrote out how I would introduce myself, and then like I
Right.
would like practice in front of a mirror. I'd be like, "Hi, my name is Celina. I am a career and executive coach. I help people, transition to fulfilling careers." And of course, now I've said it like a million times. So, and it's,
Yeah.
I really do see myself as a coach. And obviously, I've been at it for almost 8 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the times, it wasn't something I was used to. So I remember like, I'm gonna like tell everyone that I'm a coach, whoever I meet. And so I remember like tomorrow I had like some reception, and then I was like, tomorrow is the day that I'm going to introduce myself. And I
Yeah.
remember being really, really nervous on my way there. And it happened to be some like small group, and everybody
Okay.
was like in a circle introducing themselves. And normally I have no problem, like, telling people, like introducing or talking to people in general, because
Right.
I'm just a people person. But because I was going to introduce myself as a coach, I was like, oh my God, it's my turn. It's my turn. Am I going to do it? Right. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember I said it. And then I was like, oh my God, I said it. And then I think the more you talk about it, the more you see yourself as the new identity, like seems like
Right.
familiar to you. Yeah. So in the beginning, it was going through my own identity transition as a coach and then believing in myself. And then just telling everyone that I know that that I'm doing this, because
Hmm.
more people have to know it. What was actually helpful for me was that I had already written a book and started a community. So I was already speaking a lot. So it
Right.
helped that I already had some audience that were kind of
Right.
following my journey. So when I transitioned into coaching, I think it actually made a lot of sense to other people too. So I
Oh.
guess in that sense, I wasn't starting from scratch, but to
Right.
build a business as a coach is a different
Right.
thing. But yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess when you were starting, you already had like kind of the personal brand, right? Which is something that I think a lot of we'll call them entrepreneurs
Mhm.
use, and that helped you,
Yeah.
get off the ground and kind of get your first clients and people coming to you.
Mhm.
What like, if anything, what worried you the most as you were getting this underway?
Yeah, well, financially, a financial worry was definitely one. I live in New York City. I'm in
Hmm.
Chelsea, and I had
Hmm.
already bought my condo, and there was like I signed a contract, right? So I got to
Yeah.
keep paying the bills, and New York
Yeah.
City is like one of the most expensive cities in the world, and so financial struggle, of course, was one. And also there was like the whole thing of like what would other people think?
Mm.
Like that went away really quickly. But in the beginning, the whole identity transition was really scary. And also just the idea of like, I've never done this before, right? Like nobody
Right.
has any experience doing the thing that they are trying for the first time, right? So like, can I really, really make it happen
Yeah.
and actually do this? So that was some of the worries. But I think what helped was that whenever I had fear, whether it was
Yeah.
fear about money or
Hmm.
just failing or being able to do it and make it happen, I let that fear kind of motivate me to take action. So I would
Mm.
like reach out to people. I would, just go out and tell people about what I do. So like fear was like a big motivator. And in a way, I
Yeah.
think that could really fuel you to take action. So I
Yeah.
think it was helpful in that way.
Yeah. I was, yeah, so recently I was talking, I was not talking, I was watching an interview by Jeff Bezos, and I was talking to a friend about it because uh one of the things he said that struck me, and it's related to what you were talking about, which is that you know all stress comes from inaction, is what he said, right? People think that stress comes from action and things go wrong, but actually all stress comes from inaction, and you're not stressed when you're actually taking action. Like that was his kind of thing. And obviously a lot of people have different renditions of that, right? Like Gary Vee, there's something he said which was, it doesn't matter worrying about the alternatives because you have no idea how it's going to end up.
Right.
So you might as well do it anyway, right?
Mhm.
um I think that's a really important kind of thing because, like, as a founder myself and, a lot of other founders, it's like the paralysis of fear, right?
Yeah.
Like, and not necessarily like, going to your coach or commiserating about it with people that are close to you, but literally just like getting stuck because you don't see, the next way out, or like what the end solution is something that, you probably face, we probably face consistently, but constantly taking action, I think, is a great idea, and like, it's an important thing that, I think
Mhm.
people need to
Yeah.
remember, because I think like new entrepreneurs also, they don't realize that that's going to happen a lot.
Right.
Like, things are not going to go the way, like 99% of the time, things are not going to go the way that you think they're going to go. And then
Right.
1% is pure luck. It has nothing to do with you, right? So, just kind of moving forward, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah.
Um, you know, like you said, you've been doing this for 8 years, right? Have there been any particular times that were like really, really difficult where you maybe second guessed the decisions that you made?
Never in terms of a direction, which
Mm,
is actually, I'm so grateful about that.
mhm,
As soon as I found the world of coaching and committed to it, I've never once questioned my direction. Like
mm,
for the first time in my life, I felt like I was in the right direction, which was an amazing feeling to
yeah,
have. Of course, there are moments in the day like it's not easy building a business, right? So
right,
like
right,
I love the core of what I do, but at the same time, in order to do what I love, I have to do a lot of things I don't love, like social media or marketing or
yeah,
promoting myself or admin work, you know? Those things are definitely hard, but I know it's like part of the work I signed up for. And the way
yeah,
that I think about it is like when people are like, "Oh, should I quit my job?" or, things like that. Like I think about like, do you enjoy the core responsibility of your job? I think that's actually an important consideration. And when I was a lawyer, I love like all the side perks of like,
mm,
the paycheck and then the seeming prestige of working in big law and like all the perks and benefits that came with it. But at the end of the day, I didn't enjoy the core of what being a lawyer
mm,
was all about was reviewing contracts. In my
mm,
case, help rich people become richer, right? Private equity contract. I didn't enjoy
yeah,
that. Now as a coach, I love like the core of what I do every day. Like
yeah,
coaching people or speaking and then supporting them and like I love it so much that like I spend all my free time like either if I'm like not coaching or not speaking, I'm either reading books about it or like listening to
right,
podcasts about it or
right,
like or just learning about it. So yeah, so yes, there are definitely moments of pain when growing your company and growing your
right,
business and always thinking about the next step.
mm,
But in terms of a direction, never
mm,
regretted. It's actually
yeah,
interesting that you asked me that because I was like, oh my God, like you're right. I've never regretted it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I expect that answer, right? Because like, I think there are times, like, I personally look back, and like, my other friends that are entrepreneurs, like, we look back at what life would have been, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I'd stayed in finance, be making a huge paycheck, et cetera,
Mhm.
by now. Um, and then everyone around me, the response is, you would have never lasted there. Like, you would have never lasted that long.
Right.
You were already a pariah while you
Mm.
were there. You just didn't know it yet. Like,
Yeah.
because you were pretty good at your job, but nobody, like, you didn't belong, and everybody knew you didn't belong. And
Mm.
so, like, you think about the what ifs, it's like, not really. That's not really like a reality check, like the Marvel multiverse, right? It's like that multiverse does not exist. Like,
Right.
it's not an option. So there is no regret. And I do think that's a very common theme for folks that do make the plunge, right? Which is,
Yeah.
maybe it's a personality thing, maybe it's just the way we're built, but it's like, you don't look at that option
Mhm.
like
Right.
a job. It's never
Yeah.
an option,
Mhm.
right? Like you'll do anything else but the job,
Exactly.
um, to make
And I
make things work.
think regret can be a useful emotion if you
Mhm.
use it as a clue to learn what's important for you. I
Mm.
think regret can be unhelpful when people think about the best case scenario of the path that they did not take and
Right,
compare that to the worst day of their current life, right?
right.
Today you're an entrepreneur and maybe you like had a bad day or like
Yeah,
maybe there's some conflicts or whatever, but then, oh, maybe I should have stayed in finance and I would have made a bunch of money.
mm.
Maybe you wouldn't have. Maybe you would have gotten laid off.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Maybe we
had a
got laid off.
toxic
Exactly.
boss who drives
Yeah,
you crazy,
yeah.
and maybe you would have
Health
been
issues.
depressed. I don't
Yeah,
know. Like, you
yeah.
actually don't know. So, like, thinking about the rosy version of the path that you did not
Right.
take, and then comparing that to your, daily
The worst
struggles,
option.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's a it's like a recipe for misery. So,
Yeah,
and a lot of
yeah,
people do it. So,
yeah. Well, that's good coaching advice, right? That's good
yeah.
coaching. And you know, you've been doing different things, right? Like you travel a lot, you speak, you also do personal branding, then you're coaching. So you're
Mhm.
very, very busy, but it's still a business for you, right? And you're expanding your horizons, and you were telling me briefly about the next step, like what you want to do and how you want to bring it all together. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so since I became a coach, I've been coaching a lot, one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I've been speaking a lot. I was earlier this year, I was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, also Paris and London. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of different things, and something that I've noticed now that like been working as a coach for about 8 years now, 8 years now, and I have clients in many different countries. So I'm fluent in Korean, as you know. So I have a lot of clients in Korea, obviously in the U.S. Majority of my clients in the U.S., many of them in New York, but also all over the world, like clients in other parts of Asia, Europe, even Africa. So, but what's really interesting is like I feel like human journey is very similar in that I've seen different patterns, common themes that come up again and again and again.
Mm,
At the end of the day, what we want and what we struggle with is very, very similar. So, and I feel like I have a very unique lens into human mind because people tell me things that they haven't even told, like people that are really close to them, like family or friends, right? So I've heard it all at this point, almost everything. So I'm thinking about like how can I help more people? And so I've been designing a program, designing what I think I'm going to call Live Your Dream Club.
mm,
It's the place where your dream becomes a reality. And I'm going to give you all the resources and equip you with the tools so you can take action to achieve your goals and dreams. As we talked about before, even for people who don't know what they want, like who know what they want, they don't really take action because maybe there's
mm,
a lot of fear or people who don't really support them. So there's a lot of overthinking and underacting, which
mhm,
is really
mhm,
unfortunate.
mhm,
So, and also for some people, they're trying to figure out their next step in their career path and they just don't know what direction they should go in, right? So through like course and group coaching program, also accountability groups, and also I'm thinking of like bringing amazing like people who as speakers, so like a master class, and maybe also like
mm,
fun events, both virtual and in person. I want to give people like here's a place you can come to get supported, whatever
right.
like I've designed a coaching framework called love, LOVE. It's a 4-step
Mm,
process that I've designed as a result of learning like why some people succeed and why some people don't, why some people achieve their goals and dreams and why some people don't. And that's
mm,
the process I take the journey that I take through all of my clients. So
mm,
I'm going to teach that. So yeah, so I just feel like the world will be a better place if people give themselves the permission to do the
yeah,
things they want to do, whether
right.
it's related to your job or career. It could be a side project. Maybe you've always wanted to write a book or start a podcast, or maybe some creative aspirations you have. But I think unfortunately, there's people don't really get the support, and there's
Mm,
not a lot of people that are encouraging them to do so. But if there's something that you wanted to do before it is too late. We don't want to
right,
regret it on our deathbed. So,
right.
and I also know it's hard to do it alone. So I'm thinking of creating this place where people, have all the resources and also the community that will cheer for them. So,
Right,
and I
right.
think if that can happen, a lot
Hmm.
more dreams will come true. And I think the world will be a better place. We'll have like
Yeah.
better products and services. People will just generally be happier and less stressed out. People will just, feel more meaning and purpose and
Yeah.
fulfillment in their lives. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking about. So when I'm ready to launch, I'll let you know.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it sounds like, it'll be a really good like amalgamation point of everyone that has an idea or a dream and wants to like bring it together. One of the things that I've heard from other folks, or whether it's doing something on the side or whether it's a business, etc., is
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, right?
Sure.
And I'm sure
Mhm.
you've come across that too. And
Mhm.
like, do you think that there's a way to get over that? Is that even important? Is that like a social construct we've made up ourselves? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think virtually almost everyone feels have experienced imposter syndrome at some point. I don't know, maybe there's a small minority of people who don't, but I've never met anyone like that.
Yeah.
So I think this sense that like I don't have what it takes to do these things, right? Often can really get in the way. So like let's say in the scenario of let's say if you already have a job, or you got into school and then you feel like you don't belong or like you feel like you're not equipped to do the things you want to do, then I would say in that case, believe the people who gave you the chance. Like
Mm,
when I got into MIT, like, I went to like a pretty bad public high school in California. Nobody in my school had gotten into Ivy Leagues. And then a lot of people before I went were like, Selena, what if you can't like make it? Like,
you
what
can't
if you
cut it there,
like,
yeah.
yeah, they were like, my mom's friends were like making her scared.
What
Like,
if
oh
it's
my
too
God,
tough? What if you'll never
yeah,
graduate?
what if so and so got depressed, because she couldn't whatever, and then the way that I think about it is like, well, I believe in the admissions officers ability to
To
screen
judge, yeah, yeah, my
applicants more
capabilities.
than more than myself if they must
Right.
know something, right? If you got a job and you feel like you don't have what it takes, or if you got a promotion you feel like you don't have what it takes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
believe the people who give you the chance. They probably have more information about the people that would succeed in
Mm,
the role than you do. So I think that could be helpful. Like, people who get invited to speak, they're like, "Oh my God, but I don't know if I can do a good job." Like the people who invited you must think that you have something important to share. So
right,
believe
right.
that. I think for people who really want to do something that they have never done, so for example, like myself, when I set out to write a book, like nobody was telling me to do it. Nobody gave me
Hmm.
permission. I gave myself permission. And
Yeah.
like my parents thought it was like my dad was supportive. My mom, on the other hand, she's an Asian mom, a Korean mom. So she was not very supportive. And definitely I could have been an imposter. But I think what I think is more important is the courage to just give it a try, right?
Mm.
So when my mom said, well, like only famous and successful people write books, like who do you think you are? And I said, especially because I wanted to write in Korean and I only went to
Yeah,
elementary school in Korea, right? And I told her, everybody had the first try, right? Like
right.
nobody's born with a book. Nobody's
Right.
born with a company. Nobody's
Right.
an entrepreneur the day they're born,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Somebody like they're
You have to
there,
try it.
they're an expert
Right.
because they took the first step of trying. Even the most amazing authors, I'm sure they
Mm.
had a first book, like,
Right, right, right.
like, and then
Before
I
they
said,
ever wrote a book. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So
the
like
laws of
it's
physics. Yeah.
exactly. So like nobody starts with an experience. Nobody. So if you feel like you're an imposter, just remember that this is your first try. Like,
Yeah.
and in order to do something, in order to become an expert where you feel like you might not feel like an imposter, although a lot of people still feel like one,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
you need to let yourself be bad before you can be good. But
Right,
a lot of people from day one want to feel like not an imposter, like an expert, but it
right,
just doesn't make sense. So
right.
I think the courage to step into the action of trying. I learned this
Yeah.
from one of my guests I had on my podcast. Her name is Debbie Millman. She's a very
Hmm.
famous designer. And she said that courage to try is much more important than confidence. Everybody wants to be confident, but you can only be confident after you have repeatedly done something.
Right,
Like if you never learned how to ride a bicycle, can you be confident the first day you try? No.
right.
But the stuff into the action of trying and knowing that you might fall many, many
Right,
times,
right,
maybe after 10 days, you're like, yeah, I'm a little bit more confident today than I did ten days ago. And then
yeah,
after you just really learn it, then you're like, yeah, I'm confident I can ride a bicycle, right? So I
yeah,
think that's what is really important. If you're already confident, you don't need courage.
right,
So
right,
I think giving yourself permission and to having courage to try and knowing that everybody started out with the first step, first book, first company, first anything, and that everybody was, in your journey at some point. And I
right,
think something that I also tell my clients, and also which I talked about on my podcast, is that don't compare your first try with the work of the masters. Like we
right.
only see people who have like done amazing things. Like I could never do that, but they had their early days too. We don't
Yeah,
see that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's not fair to you if you're like, oh my God, like I remember when I first recorded my podcast, I thought I sounded so awkward and I would compare it to like all these people who have been doing it for like 20 years,
Hmm,
you
hmm,
know? I'm like,
hmm, hmm.
that's not fair because they
Yeah,
they probably, weren't that good when they started. So
that's
give
right,
yourself permission to just start and to be bad for a while. And
right.
after that, after you are bad for some time, and then you keep trying it again and again, through those actions, you will one day become good, and one day you can become an expert and a master.
Awesome. Well, we're running short on time. I do have one more question, and then we can wrap it up from there. One piece of advice. I mean, you already gave just great advice right now, but one piece of advice, someone wants to get started. That's the first one. Second one, a book that you would recommend. Well, two books. One is your own, and then the second book that is not your own that you would recommend for folks that want to take the leap.
Yeah. I think something I've learned along the journey of my own career and life journey, as well as interviewing a lot of successful people for my book and the podcast and coaching a lot of people, I've learned that at the foundation of all success and happiness is about how we see ourselves and how we talk to ourselves and the relationship we build with ourselves. That is at the core of everything. And that reflects through all of your relationships and all the decisions that you make, right? And unfortunately, this is something I think a lot of Korean American
Hmm.
struggle with. It's something that we were not taught growing up, unfortunately. And I'm not saying all other parents teach it, but I think Korea also culturally and historically had some challenges, and that we it was not something that we learned when we're growing up. So like how are you talking to yourself? Like we have that like huge inner negative voice that tells us we're not
Yeah.
good enough, you're never gonna make it happen, all of those things. But there's also the best version of you, and I call it my inner hero.
Mm.
And like, because we are human, so like we're on a spectrum. So like sometimes we feel like a complete loser, or like, I feel so
Mm-hmm.
terrible about myself. But some days, like you can be the most brave version of you, the
Right,
most courageous version of you.
right.
Sometimes you're like,
Everything's possible. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So like that is in you. That is part of you too. So knowing that like you have that inner hero too. So give your inner hero the more power, not your inner
Hmm.
negative voice. And they're like tools and techniques that I teach to my clients. And to know that like you have to be like your own best friend. Like, you know
Hmm.
how like sometimes I don't know if you have this experience, like some people reach out only when like something like if you get a promotion, all of a sudden you start hearing people
Oh
use
yeah,
the
yeah,
word, like the
yeah,
peace friends who reach out only when you have some cool announcement to
yeah.
make.
Something cool
Like,
happened. Yeah,
yeah, those are not real friends, right? And they're never there for you, like when you need
yeah,
their help, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, like, would you consider them a friend? Like, no, they're probably like fake friends, and you don't really want to be friends with them, right? So those people you can get away from, but I think there may be a chance that, we might be a fake friend to ourselves. Like,
Hmm.
we're only proud of ourselves, or only like, happy when there's some kind of external recognition or something's
Right,
going
right,
well.
right.
But when we make like a small mistake, we like beat the hell out of us and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
like
yeah.
such a loser, like what is wrong with you, right? Then it just creates a bad relationship. And what's terrible is that you can never get away from yourself.
Right,
And
right,
so I've
right, right.
seen like people who like even though they have a very amazing resume, externally they have all these credentials, but very, very unhappy inside is because
Hmm.
they didn't know how to cultivate this self-compassion, this kind relationship with yourselves, where like
Yeah,
you're gonna be the true friend, not the fake friend that will be there no matter what.
Right, right,
And
right.
there's been a lot of studies that prove that having self-compassion helps you to be more productive, builds better relationship, and helps you to be more successful. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about and don't work on. So that's a
Right.
big part of the work that I do. A book, in addition to my own, that I am going to
Yeah.
recommend. I have made so many books that I like, but one book that really was meaningful and I really enjoyed reading is called Give and Take by Adam Grant. He's a very famous professor from Wharton. And I read this book many, many years ago. I think this is right after I wrote my book. And basically, the book talks about how the givers succeed more than takers in the long term. So,
Hmm.
like, the more you give, the more you share, the more generous you are, the kind you are, the more people you help over time. So, because the world is divided into three groups, there's givers, matchers, and takers. Takers
Takers.
obviously take more than they give. Givers
Right.
give more than they take. Matchers want to be equal, and most people are apparently matchers. So the
Mm.
more you
Yeah.
give, you're like building goodwill, right?
Right,
And
right,
then
right.
eventually, when you want to do something, all the matchers who you've helped along the
Yeah.
way will want to like pay it back to you. So they're like excited to support you. You've already developed this reputation. And so people are just like spreading goodwill for you. This is what it feels like when you want to do something and the universe conspires to make things happen, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
yeah, and this is really informs the work that I do, which is
Mm.
like I really want to be live in a world where there are lots of givers
Hmm.
and to help each other out. So yeah, so that's kind of like a good idea for I guess a philosophy for the Live Your Dream Club that I am
Yeah.
creating right now. That I would love for more givers to join. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll send you the link where people can check it out. Maybe a
Okay.
waitlist form.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have you back, when the club is officially launched, of course.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll definitely share everything. Hit the comments. We're gonna have a lot of, social media and channels for Selena in the comments and the commentary. So let us know what you want to, learn more about in Live Your Dream. Selena, thank you so much for recording with us. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.